Fahey.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jean, for joining us today. I'll have some official questions in a second, but I think it's important that we know that we're taking all of these interviews and hopefully splicing them together in preparation for the 150th birthday of Plymouth State University. And I have to think, university, state college, go backwards, teachers college, and normal school. So are you ready to begin?
Ready?
Thank you. What year did you arrive in Plymouth?
I came to Plymouth in 1975.
And at that time, was it Plymouth Normal School? I'm being facetious, Plymouth Teachers College, State College, or University?
At that time, Plymouth State College in 1975. 03, I think, is when we changed to university, if I remember.
Can you recall, you don't have to answer this, but can you recall your first year salary?
I had to look that up, in fact, and I was able to find that it was 14,100, 14,100. So that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
I had a master's and I had some experience, so I was not exactly in entry level.
This may be a little bit more difficult. When you arrived here, can you remember the population of the students that we might have had?
It was about 2,500, as I recall, in the mid-70s. Yeah.
And employees, this is even a more difficult one.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe 160. That might be high. I'm not sure.
The number of employees that we have on this campus, everybody together as of 4 years ago was around 900. We're talking custodians, faculty, etc. So it would be interesting to get the latest.
Yeah.
How many years were you employed at Plymouth? When did you leave Plymouth, and therefore, how many years?
41. So I came to Plymouth in 1975 and retired in 2016. 3.5 years ago, 2016.
For your audience, what were you hired as? What was your position?
Right. I came in as Associate Director of Admission.
Associate, which means who was the Director of Admissions
Chuck
at the time?
Bailey was our director. And so, I came in with a master's and having been 2 years in college admissions prior to Plymouth State. And so that allowed me to become an associate director.
And can I ask where you were before?
I was at a college in Erie, Pennsylvania called Mercyhurst College. Yeah.
Wow. What enticed you to come to Plymouth?
Yeah. Well, I guess with everyone applying for a job, that's it. Searching for a job, and I really at that time didn't know New Hampshire well, didn't know Plymouth State certainly, but it was the position obviously that attracted me to Plymouth, and getting here that day back in the summer of 1975.
Let's talk about the position if we can. What responsibilities went along with your position?
Well, admissions is the outreach, of course, the outreach to prospective students. And so requirements were travel, significant travel in the fall to recruiting students in the high schools, at college fairs, college nights around New England, especially in New Hampshire. We visited every high school in New Hampshire in those days, and as far as I know, we still do. We felt that was our mission as a public. And so recruitment, travel, reviewing applications, serving on panels, conducting talks in the evening programs for parents on campus as well. So it was recruitment. Yeah.
I'm thinking of you going into a high school. Was it a fair? Or was it more sitting down with small groups of people, or did they have a job career fair?
A typical high school visit. In most colleges, programs, it would be 4 a day, and your point of contact was the guidance counselor, the guidance director. And so in a typical setting, you're meeting with prospective students who have signed up to leave Algebra 2 and come in to hear a talk about Plymouth State. So that is the typical daytime visit protocol. In the evening, you'd be in a college fair, typically a high school gymnasium or high school cafeteria, where 50 or 70 colleges from around the Northeast have tables, and parents and students hopefully come to your table to learn about Plymouth State.
And you're starting to do this position in the in the 70s,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking of the growth of the college at the same time.
Yeah.
We had started to explode.
Yeah.
Hmm, interesting, interesting. Describe what your first few years were like when you came to Plymouth and entered this position.
Well, the first thing I think about is the support and the mentoring of Chuck Bailey. He was my boss. He was had been the longtime director of admission at Plymouth, and he guided me, showed me what it takes in administration, preparation, planning. I can remember a meeting would be set up, let's say, with a group on campus, or a group of students or faculty, and the day before the session, reminder notes have been sent out, hard copy paper, and the day before he'd be calling people to remind them that tomorrow at 9 a.m. is the session. I'd say, Chuck, you know, they responded that they're coming, you've sent them an RSVP, why are you calling them this afternoon? And he said, I don't want any mistakes. I don't want any surprises. And so that kind of follow through, that kind of thoroughness, I don't know if I totally ever measured up to Chuck's thoroughness and organization, but he was the mentor for me that way.
I'm pausing right now. I'm thinking of the next question. During your tenure here, you come in the middle of the 70s. Chuck may have come here in the middle of the 60s, I believe.
Well, of course, he graduated in about 60, early 60s, and then he went on to get a master's and teach at Ashland, and then he was in, I think, administration over in the Ellen Reed House, and then he followed Norton Bagley as and one other gentleman who I can't recall in working on admitting people. But
oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So we have Bagley. We have
another gentleman who I'm spacing on, but
right.
then Chuck.
Chuck Bailey, and then you.
Yeah.
Very nice,
Yeah.
very nice. And during all of this time, the population of Plymouth, the students here are growing.
Yeah. And then by the mid 2000s, we were right around 4,000 undergrads, and of course we had part-time and evening and off-campus and on-campus numbering larger than that, but our on-campus in-person a little over 4,000 in that time frame.
It really grew fast.
Yeah.
It really did. Wonder if anybody anticipated this. I think of the 50s when there was a discussion going on with President Hyde, and I think the population had probably leveled off. It was like this for a while, and they were told you need to do this, and look what happened.
So Smith and Grafton were built in the late 60s, I guess, and that was a significant change, and then of course our new residence hall on the north end of campus. But any college has fluctuations and maybe unexpectedly large classes. That has happened to us every now and then, and you might remember we had to rent the motel up on North Main Street and shuttle students. Colleges do have that experience every now and then. The yield is larger than expected. So that's of course a good problem to have to deal with.
That is,
Yeah,
well
yeah,
said,
yeah.
well said. When you got the offer to come to Plymouth State, again, I'm being repetitive, I think a tad, why did you decide to come here? Did you accept it over other offers? I don't think I need to ask you that. What enticed you?
Yeah.
Was it the relationship, maybe the interaction
Yeah.
with Mr. Bailey or other folks here? Was it the town, perhaps?
the memory that jumps out is the interaction with two people that day, the day coming here for the interview. Well, one was Jim Smith, who was the dean of the college, and he was chairing our little search committee that was working on this position. And so Jim Smith and Chuck Bailey, and then again to be offered a job, and it was about a job search, and the physical beauty of this place, the campus, not knowing again anything at that point about it, made it a yes. And so came up and in fact stayed with Chuck in his house for the first month while my wife Barbara cleaned up details where we were coming from. And so we were, I was welcomed literally by Chuck as I bunked with him for the first, in his house on Broadway for the first month.
I'm thinking, yes, he lived up here and then he lived over
Right
there.
over by Jim Damaris.
There we are,
Yeah.
there we are. Since you brought up Barbara, if you don't mind, your wife worked here for several years and had a position on campus, would you mind?
No, Barbara was the first woman to receive an MBA at Plymouth State. And there's a great picture of her receiving her MBA on the stage in Foley Gymnasium. That was May of '77, and she was at that point 8 months pregnant, and it was very obvious under her academic gown did not disguise that fact as she received her MBA. But she then went on to work as the college bursar and then the comptroller at Plymouth State.
During the same years as you?
That's right. She retired in 2010. I stayed 6 years longer, and so she was on campus first in academic support services and talent search in the late 70s, and then after the master's degree moved into the business office.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've already talked about your mentors during your tenure here. You said that Chuck Bailey was an influence on you, Jim Smith in the very beginning. Were there others during your tenure that became more than colleagues?
Well, that's a good way to say it. Dick Hage became my supervisor. He succeeded Jim Smith as the dean of the college and then VP of student services, I think was the title. But after Chuck retired in about '92, Dick Hage, as dean of students, was my supervisor. I was director of admissions, and Dick was my supervisor. Along with Chuck and Jim Smith, Dick was and continues to be a model, a mentor, a friend, how to treat people, how to be fair to people, how to be consistent. So without doubt, how Dick did his job was a pretty good model for everybody in our student affairs division.
A fine human being.
Yep.
Yep.
Even though Lebanese, yes, but
I can appreciate that because that's my
like
background.
a Samaha, yes.
That's right. I don't want you to be humble on the next one. How do you feel during your lengthy tenure on this campus? What influence do you feel you had or hope you had on people, the institution?
Well, there's a famous Bill Belichick phrase that's very often used, which is "do your job," and that's often mentioned when he's discussed. You hope that people saw that you didn't miss many days, that you were consistent, that you were fair, that you tried to be open, and that people saw that there was a professionalism in what we do. And so again, drawing from people like Chuck Bailey especially, there's a way to do this job both from the, the, the policy point of view and from the human interaction point of view, that hopefully was successful.
I think that's a lot of faculty members, I would say that.
Mhm.
That connection to students is really important.
Yeah.
So the professional way, but also that human touch is so important today,
Yeah,
contact, yeah, it's a good one. During your time at Plymouth, decades thereof, what changes have you seen take place? It could
So
be
both
physical-
campus and
Yeah.
town?
No, let's do one and the other if we can. Let's do the campus first.
Okay.
And I can make the statement, and I think I'm okay with this. In 11 years, or vice versa, in 11 years, we had 10 buildings go up.
Yeah.
All right, that's huge as
Yeah.
far as the physicality of this
Yeah.
place.
The campus, what comes to mind from 1975, when I arrived that day, that summer, the old high school was still standing across from Spear Building on what now comprises the Alumni Green. So the old high school was still standing. The Boyd Hall had not yet been renovated. The Lamson Library had not yet been expanded. The Silver Hall, our auditorium, was still a very traditional setup. That is an old gymnasium with a stage at one end, which was the setup for many schools and colleges from the 40s and 50s, and that was still our performance space. So Silver had not yet been renovated. Of course, the D&M building was at that time still the Rochester Shoe Tree Company. The ice arena, the All-Well Center, we're long in the future in 1975, and so those are some that come to mind. But a very different campus. The footprint has not, interestingly, not radically changed over time. The content of the footprint has, of course, expanded. We went from a size 9.5 to maybe a size 14, but we are surrounded by Main Street and by the community of Plymouth. So our expansion options were not all that extensive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It changes, it appears to change with the other campus. When the PE center
Holderness
came
side,
into
yeah,
being,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, because now we're going from one side
Yep.
to the other side. We're going through town now.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk the town.
Yeah.
What changes have you
Well,
seen?
Of course, the quote unquote the movie theater was just that. It was the Plymouth Theater, showing movies. But now, of course, it's a wonderful performance center, which Alex Ray has created to bring in talent from around the country and the world. It's terrific. So the Plymouth Theater was just a movie theater. If you wanted a hamburger, there was no fast food in Plymouth. You went out to the Flying Saucer on Tenny Mountain Highway, which was not really a fast food place, but it was a hamburger place. If you wanted to go to McDonald's, you drove down to Lakeport, down to Laconia. And so many changes on Main Street.
Main Street, did you have Newberry's? When you
Oh
came
yeah,
here, there was
Newberry's was here. A combination, five and dime, somewhat of a five and dime, and a soda fountain.
Mhm.
And so there were. That was the community gathering space for many people. I do remember people like Dr. Marking, President Casper Marking, and some other local town people. Louis, I think. There was an electrician named Samaha, Sam.
Sam, Holly,
Yeah,
everybody
Sam
Sam in my family, Sam.
would have. I know he would have coffee with President Marking and Chuck Bailey and others, maybe Jim Damaris, at Newberry's.
It really was a gathering place.
Yeah, yeah.
It really was. Interesting, interesting. I still go back to you. What contributions What contributions that you think you have
Yeah.
made or hope you have made
Yeah.
during your tenure?
Well, one of the great things about a school of 2,500 students, a Division III college athletically, um, a small school, is that this place gave me the chance to have roles outside of admissions. I came here to work in admissions. Uh, My very first year, I was able to be an assistant to Jack Rhodes, who was the men's basketball coach. So the very first year, I was pleased to, I had a basketball background, so to be an assistant coach in men's basketball. Um, 76, 4 years later, I was able to be the men's basketball coach for 3 years, along with being continuing in admissions. And so being able in a small school to serve those roles was fabulous. And so being a men's basketball coach was a terrific experience. I hope it was for the guys. We had a great time. We built a lot of character, as they say. You know, losing builds character. We had some of that. Winning season the last year, and then 2 years later, John Clark had gone to be assistant to the president, and so I was acting athletic director for 2 years in '85 to '87. So that was a terrific experience to be able to be involved. Along the way, advisor to Kappa Delta Phi a fraternity, and so being able to work with students, both athletics and student life, as well as recruiting students, was very, very rewarding. It was, you really felt part of the place. And I sometimes feel that people I've known over the years working for a large university, 20,000, 30,000, I sense that they were compartmentalized and that they didn't have involvement across the student body the way Up on the State gives people a chance to.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What changes may we have learned from our past? What changes have we learned from our past that has helped Plymouth as they move forward? Every new administrator, president of a university, comes in and they make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
What changes have we had during the time you entered and the time you retired? We've had physicality changes, we've had academic changes. Has our mission changed? That's
Maybe above my pay grade or knowledge at this moment. That is the mission. You know, our mission has always been to serve the state and to be a multiverse kind of university. And I trust and assume that no longer sitting on those councils, I assume that that's still the case. Yes, we have grown much beyond our campus itself over the years. Continuing ed has expanded where even many years ago the Dave Kents of the world would be going out to locations around the state to do evening classes, and many others, just as an example. And so we've had that outreach for many years. We've had experience in China, in Limerick, Ireland over the years that has waxed and waned in many ways. And so it certainly expanded, but as far as what we are and what we've been, I hope that this place continues to be, or would continue to be, a place that values employees, values the contributions of veteran people. There are always resource limitations and the telescoping of resources that in the harsh realities cause us to make changes. But you'd hope that the people, as the old phrase goes, the people would be the most valued if possible. And that's been the real, to me, that my experiences here has been the heart and the soul of this place in trying to do my admissions work. relying on the departments that have been especially close to admissions in our function, financial aid, residential life, the bursar's office, undergraduate studies. Not so much the directors in those departments, but I think of the support help I've had in just answering my ignorant questions throughout the years. A phone call to Deb LeBlanc in housing, or Mary Campbell in undergraduate studies, or Kim Gammons in the bursar's office, Angela Torsi in financial aid. I have a question I need trying to answer about policy, or about a student's trying to help a student move along their pathway, and those people who really, in a way, run the institution in ways that directors and deans really do not. That they say sergeants run the army. In a way, the Deb LeBlancs and Mary Campbells of the world have really been hugely were enormously helpful to me in trying to get my job in admissions done. And so the cooperation, if there's a theme at Plymouth, it's been that I always felt in admissions supported and cooperated with and helped by departments like that, by faculty, a family visits who's interested in psychology. Joel Funk, do you have a few minutes? I have a family interested. Send them over. That is the typical kind of answer. Just an example of Joel, but I've got 10 minutes. Send them over right now. I've got a class but send them right over, and I'd love to talk to them about whether it's Bob Swift or whoever it is. That kind of support and cooperation has been, to me, a theme here on this campus in ways that, again, colleagues at really large universities, I don't sense exactly the same kind of warmth and understanding of the mission.
I think we have an appreciation of some of the people, most of the people that you talked about, unsung heroes that make our institution what it is. It's huge. It's huge. Just a question. Is there a story that you would share about Plymouth State that you think you're comfortable sharing? It could be a sad story. It could be a happy story that you have just remembered over the years. It could have happened yesterday, or it could have happened 30 years ago.
Well, it's an example that, over my time in admissions, one of the audiences, one of our primary audiences, one of our most important publics, so to speak, is the community of high school guidance counselors, high school admissions counselors. And so over the years, representing Plymouth, sitting on a panel with Keene State, Plymouth State, Granite State, Keene, Plymouth, UNH would do panels throughout the entire year, very often to not only parents and perspectives, but guidance counselors. And one of the stories I've shared with guidance counselors has been the experience my son Jack had here, a Plymouth regional high school boy who came to Plymouth, and what I noticed in his studies in English and with a minor in art, Terry Downs especially in printmaking, but his English studies with Paul and with Alice and with Robin DeRosa, the flame you could see was turning up, and his interest, his motivation was increased, was improved by being exposed to these people. And so you noticed a change in Hassan here at Plymouth State, and that's the value that I know happens for all of our students, and that they find, students tend to find a mentor, an advisor, someone who helps them along, inspires them, and that's what Jack found, and the same as we all have mentors. It was nice to see our students, in this case Hassan, find them as well. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Is there something else that we may have forgotten that you would like to share with the audience today? It was fun having you drop names.
Yeah.
It takes me back, and I think that's what we're trying to do as we move toward our 150th birthday.
Yeah. I guess I just finish by saying over the years, again, 41 years here, people from away from New Hampshire, from outside, or who really don't know New Hampshire or don't know Plymouth, or are from New York or Greater Boston or Hartford, might say, how in the world could you be in that forsaken wilderness? That's really, they don't say that, but that's really what they mean. How could you live in a place that's 2 hours from Boston, or it's 5.5 hours from New York, which is their point of reference. And what I've always told them was that Plymouth has been a wonderful place for our family and a place to live, where the old that show Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And well, there are lots and lots of positives to being able to go to the Hannaford Pharmacy, and they're picking your bag of your prescription off before you even get to the window, because they know who you are. That doesn't happen every business. They don't know what my order is going to be at every business, but really to walk down Main Street and know the people is a real plus, as well as feeling part of the campus and part of the college community.
That is a comment I hear over and over again. You walk the main street,
Yeah.
and you know them, and they
Yeah.
know you.
Yep. Yep.
And you say something to them back and forth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. Have we forgotten anything, Jean? Is there something about you that the audience would be surprised to know?
I don't know.
Well, I do. I every once in a while see you passing my house. What are you doing?
My hobby probably is trying to stay involved in hiking and snowshoeing and mountain running, and so my hobby in the past 15 years or so has been entering races. There's a mountain series in New England in the summer of hill races, and so entering the Mount Washington road race, which Dick Church inspired me to get involved in back in the 80s. Dick Church, who was an age group champion in his 50s, several years in a row, and an age group record holder at Mount Washington. Dick really got me into the insanity of mountain running, and so that led to 20-some Mount Washingtons and to the Pikes Peak ascent the last 2 years. So that's the quirk, I guess, or the hobby that I've tried to stick with.
So you're probably happy you live where you do, because the road that we live on is pretty steep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mount Prospect is a great place to live, because you have trails and you have verticality nearby, and it's a great place.
So once again, thank you for willing to share about your time in Plymouth. As we move forward, 2021 is the 150th birthday of this university, and I think it has a lot of stories to tell.
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
Liz.